Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and today we're at FoodLink's Lexington Avenue Community Farm with edible education and urban farming specialist Nathaniel Mich. And today we're going to learn how to build and prepare raised garden beds.
Hi, welcome to the farm. We're here to talk about raised beds, which are a really important part of gardening. If you are gardening on city-owned land, like this is, raised beds are required. But regardless of where you're gardening, raised beds are a really good idea. They help us control the soil, they're a little easier to reach, and they just kind of keep things contained and organized a little more easily. You can make a raised bed out of almost anything. Here at the farm, in our community garden, we have raised beds made out of several different materials. We've got raised beds built out of recycled lumber. We've got raised beds built out of reused food storage containers. We've got raised beds built out of rigid plastic and plastic pond liner. You can build raised beds out of tires, out of cinder blocks, even out of cardboard boxes. Once you have your materials, they're really easy to set up. You don't have to bust any sod, you don't have to remove weeds. Just put down a layer of corrugated cardboard or several sheets of newspaper over the space where you're going to have your raised bed, build the frame on top of that, and then fill it with the best quality garden or potting soil you can find with a lot of compost in it. Raised beds have a lot of benefits when you are gardening because you're going to bring in soil to fill those frames. You have a lot of control over the composition of the soil. This makes it really easy to make sure you're getting enough organic material, that your pH is correct, and you're getting all the nutrients that your plants need. You can use almost any quality garden soil. I like to recommend a 50-50 mix of a screened topsoil and a good broken down, well-aged compost. This can either be compost from your own compost pile, or you can purchase compost. Because raised beds are elevated and because you're putting in that soil, they usually have much better drainage, which makes them much happier for vegetables. That sheet mulch, the cardboard or the newspaper that you're going to put underneath the bed before you fill it, makes weed control much easier in these. And they also kind of create their own little microclimate. Raised beds tend to warm up more quickly than in-ground gardens, so you can plant just a little bit earlier in them. One thing I like to point out here is in our raised beds here, our gardeners planted their cilantro and their early crops several weeks ago. It's already coming up. Raised beds also make trellising, like this elaborate setup here, much easier to install. You can anchor it to the wall of the raised bed or install it right down the middle. These raised beds are built with untreated pine. They're 10-inch wide boards. I buy them in 8-foot lengths, cut some of them in half to make 4x8 raised beds, and then they're just screwed together with decking screws. There are lots of different kinds of wood that you can use. Untreated lumber is best. Certain types of wood are more resistant to rot. So if it's in your budget, cedar or black locust will last decades even. But I've found that simple pine is, for me, in the sweet spot of cost and ease of use, and then they last 5 or 6 years, which for me is a decent turnaround time for replacing them. When you are filling the raised bed, so we put down that layer of cardboard, we put the frame on top of it, and then I like to fill them up to about an 1.5 inches or so from the top. This just leaves you some extra room to prevent water runoff and to make things a little easier to work. Most vegetable plants have pretty shallow root systems, so you don't need that much more than 8 inches of soil depth unless you're trying to grow really big carrots or daikon radishes or something. If you are doing perennials, you might want to consider a deeper raised bed to accommodate those bigger root structures. I don't go shallower than 8 inches if I can help it, though. So to sum it up, raised beds are a really great option for your garden. They allow you to control your soil more closely. They make weed control easier. They drain better. It makes it easier to manage and track your crops. They're higher up, so you don't have to bend over as much. They are required on city-owned land, so if you're community gardening, you have to have a raised bed, but they're recommended no matter what your context is because they just help you get that much more abundance out of a small space.
Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for more gardening videos by subscribing to What's Good Rochester. And if you'd like to get involved in your gardening community, be sure to check out the Urban Agriculture Working Group on Facebook.